In Abi Academy of Magic, some students look at the wooden dummies for swordsmanship and get worried because they have just replaced them the other day. Their sensei, Rudon, who looks like Aizawa sensei of Hero Academia with eye bags, appears and inquires them about what happened. They inform him that the dummies are worn out even if they were supposed to last at least a year if used only for classes. Rudon does not have something to say in return. We see a guy delving deep into his thoughts, learning the application of some jutsu. Even Rudon calls his name several times, and he becomes attentive at the last call. Sensei has come to ask him how many hours he has to practice every morning to get the wooden dummies to that state. That guy's name is introduced as Norman. He has bandages on both his hands. He apologizes to Sensei that he does not want to neglect his training, and today is a semi-annual swordsmanship exam after all. After listening to this, Rudon returns while giving him advice that he is a hard-working person, which is his strength, but there is to everything. At that rate, he will end up reading all the books in the library. This room has several bundles of books piled up, and Noman says he just finished reading them. Some guys are fighting with swords in the training ground of the academy under the mentorship of Rudon. One of two students in the audience complains about why they have to learn swordsmanship when this is a magic school, and the other student replies that it's for the sake of cultivating a healthy body and mind, and that swordsmanship does not affect one's grade, so he has to get along with it. One of the guys fighting is Regal, who easily defeats the other guy. Everyone expected him to be this cool as he belonged to the noble family and has defeated 10 students in a row. He is enraged right now because he considers them weaklings and hates those people who restrain an exam competition the most. If they are not going to come at him with kill intent, then they have to just give up from the start. Rudon asks his students if there is anyone who wants to challenge Regal. Unexpectedly, Norman raises his hand. He goes to the training ground while everyone gossips about him. Even though he is heir to a prestigious noble family, Eslan family, the audience is confident Regal is gonna win. Norman has come confidently with a small wooden sword. The wooden swords are given to each person and they have the same length and weight, which seems fair, but it is not, because even if people are close in age, there will be differences in how they handle the swords due to differences in their physiques, and the weapons which don't fit according to physique result in disadvantages. Their duel begins. Normal pushes Regal back with his skillful tactics. Regal blocks his attack, saying not to mess around. He is fighting like a ninja or assassin and has not even abandoned his pride as a noble. Norman takes out a second blade and says that Regal is one of the most skilled students in school. He has not beaten him with swordsmanship, so he learned that what it takes to beat him is neither pride nor strength, but fighting and knowledge is his best solution. Some guys in the audience gossip if modifying weapons is not cheating. Rudon overhears them and says it's not against the rules, and that fighting style is a noble ancient swordsmanship that is passed down in neighboring countries. Swordsmanship classes are intended to cultivate a healthy body and mind, and the true meaning of this is to learn how to think and act for himself. One should not accept the given rules or environment and always think about what is best for himself. The scene shifts to when Norman asks Rudon if it would be all okay to modify the sword to make it easy to use. In swordsmanship classes, wooden swords of the same length and weight are provided rather than lent. The rule of this test is to use the sword that was provided, and the possibility of modifying swords is not explicitly mentioned. In addition, if he does not have to return it, then it means he can freely use this sword to make his own to fit him. Rudon agrees with him that he noticed it very well, gives a ray of hope to Norman that he can win. He worked on this sword, and finally, after hard work, he made it small, quick, and precise. Norman is fighting well with his sword, pushing Regal back, even though Regal can push through with force. Norman says no matter how physically fit or talented Regal is, if he lets his guard down, then he will surely be tripped by someone like him. No man gives his last shot. He moves his sword straight at the middle of Regal's sword and forces the weight at one point. With this, Regal's sword breaks into parts, and Normal points his sword at his neck, claiming his victory. Regal is the guy not accept his defeat. He accepts that Normal has been reading books and training for nothing, but he does not have to get cocky. He uses his magic to divert Norma's attention and hits his face to push him back. Norman is a failure who should not think he can stand on the same level as him. Regal activates his spell Flame Lion, through which a flaring lion appears that he sends to Norman. Norman raises his hands to activate a skill, Fireball, but nothing comes out even when he chants its mantra repeatedly. Rudon steps in and freezes the flare lion using his skill Ice Prison. He ends the duel that it's a swordsmanship test and magic is not permitted. Regal refers to Norman that he is a failure, no matter how much techniques or knowledge he has. It's meaningless if he can't use magic. After that, Regal comes out of the training ground. Those two guys gossip about Norman that it's not like Norman did not use magic. It is that he can't use magic. No matter how much knowledge he has or how good he is at swordsmanship, it's no match for magic. That's the reason he is called the incompetent Norman. He stands there alone on the training ground with miserable emotions. Back in Esland family library, Norman sulks with anguish that he understands the foundation of magic is to call upon spirits and borrow their powers, but he has never heard the words of spirits in these years. He is dying to know the reason. Suddenly, he feels an ominous presence coming towards him. He looks back and finds a black book with the title, Ars Gotia. It describes 72 demons, their appearances, ranks, and specific rituals to summon them. Norman is surprised to see such a book that exits to summon demons, which is a forbidden technique. He can also hear something which is more like a scream or moaning. When he is delving into the dark realization of demons, his sister, Neen, barges into the room, so he hides the book from her hurriedly. She is furious over him that he came without saying he was home, and he has also got an injury on his head. She heals his injury while detailing his school routine. He practices swordsmanship early in the morning and studies magic in the library of school, and when he comes back home, he studies again. She thought he went outside to exercise and build his stamina. He does not need to push himself and take care of himself a little. He gives his reason that he can't use magic, so he has to work harder than anyone else. She encourages him while holding his cheeks that she knows he works hard and his efforts will be worth it even if he is not rewarded right now. He has to be confident in himself and all that which he has accomplished. Their mother in heaven must be watching over him. He will inherit the house and protect the family, and she will also enroll in magic school and become a great magician so she can support his brother and family. It's the promise they made with their mother. Norman agrees with her and thanks her for supporting him. Their maid arrives and informs them that their father, Mark, has summoned them. They mark their presence to their good-for-nothing father. He has made a sudden decision not to expect anything from Norman and is banishing him from the Esland family. It's unheard of for someone to be unable to use magic even though they are almost 15 years old. He is utterly disappointed in Norman even though he is only his son, and he is bound by the rule that only males of the family can inherit the family line, so he has decided to adopt a son to replace him. Neen speaks for his brother and considers it cruel to do with his own child. He knows how hard Norman tries every day. Mark does not fudge even slightly and is disappointed over the fact that Norman put in that much time and effort, but he can't even use basic magic. Without further ado, he introduces the new heir of the family, Dimitri. He comes forth and starts insulting Norman that he can't believe Norman can't use magic even though both of his parents were excellent magicians. He is a disgrace to his family, but he does not need to worry because he will protect this house from now on. Neen is enraged, unable to get what's going on, and she is not ready to accept Dimitri. She yells at him that he is not his family and needs to get out of here. Suddenly, Dimitri slaps right at her face and Mark does not say anything. Dimitri is self-confident that he may be a commoner, but he is a genius at magic, and he is going to be the next head of the family, so if she defied him, he will not show her mercy. Mark makes her attentive and says he has decided to marry her off to a noble of another house as soon as she turns 15. Dimitri interrupts that it was he and his father who decided it because it would be beneficial for the family to make connections. When Neen is going to give him a suitable answer, her father shouts her name and commands her to be obedient. He says to Norman that a place has been for him, so he has to leave by tomorrow. Those children without mothers are left without any hope ahead. They come out of the room where Neen cries and says they had promised with their mother. With that said, she runs to her room. Norman recalls the sequence of events that happened in his life and regrets that it was all for nothing. He can't seem to achieve anything, his family and house, no matter how hard he tries. He recalls the black book and runs to get in the library. He carries the book while thinking that he has not heard any voice before, and by judging this grimoire, that voice must be of demon. Without thinking further, he decides to make use of this book if it involves forbidden arts and risk of life, but it's only a way to escape the current situation. He draws a ritual circle according to the given in the book and starts chanting the script. He commands Furcas, 5th in order of Gotia in his name, to come into this world. The ritual circle shines brightly, and then an old man appears out of nowhere and introduces himself as Furcas, one of 72 demons of Solomon. He inquires Norman about his wish, whether it's women, power, money, wisdom, or immortality. He refers to Norman as the boy who possesses the Ars Gotia. Norman is surprised at his achievement that he really summoned a demon. He hopefully wishes that he wants to able to use magic, but the demon refuses him that it's impossible for him. It leaves Norman in utter disappointment. It's because he is hated by spirits, and to use magic, he must borrow the power of spirit. Norman is perplexed and cannot why they would hate him. The old man can think of one reason that Norman is favored by demons. Demons are attracted to pure and strong souls like him because many demons find greater joy in corrupting a soul like this with their own hands than the soul that falls easily. However, there are things that only he can do because he is favored by demons. Depending on how he uses it, it might not be impossible to do something like magic. Norman asks him, it is true, but old man intends to continue this story tomorrow because it's past Norman's bedtime. The morning arises when they both are at the main gate. Furcas learns Norman's name and inquires why he is carrying a lot of stuff just for the morning troll. Norman wants him to quiet down if his family hears them, then what he will tell them about Furcas. Furcas calms him down that he does not need to worry about his surroundings, only he can hear and see Furcas. Demons are summoned in a spirit form initially. Furcas can talk to Norman because he is the summoner, but he can't touch Norman. There are some demons who can materialize on their own, but only when summoners allow them to materialize so other humans can realize the existence of demons. Furcas is compassionate and offers if necessary can materialize himself and carry Norma's luggage. However, Norman can't let an old man and horse carry them. Besides, he is not out for a morning stroll but is banished from the house because those who can't use magic have no right in this house. He worked really hard, but he did not get the results he wanted, and that's the reason he picked the Arsgosha. Furcas wants to know why Norman summoned him out of the other 72 demons, and learns Norman happened to open that page that was about him. Furcas considers it good luck. If Norman had summoned a vicious demon instead of him, then he could have regretted it, or maybe could have died. Even though he is liked, not any demon will listen to him obediently. If they try to do something evil against his will, then he must do something with his power. He must realize he is crossing a dangerous bridge that could cost his life. Norman thinks about the situation that even though he was desperate, he was naive about the dangers of using the forbidden techniques and could have endangered the lives of Neen and other innocent people. He thanks Furcas for giving a piece of advice and makes his leave along with him. He finally reaches his prepared destination, which is no more than a wretched house. Norman looks at it from the outside and wonders if he can live there. He enters his new place through a normal door, and Furcas enters through the wall as he is able to pass through solid things as ghosts. The condition of the house from inwards is also in miserable conditions. It looks like cleaning and repairing will take a lot of time. Its horrible state is proof that people don't frequently visit this place, and it will be more convenient for Furcas to be in a place that is not popular. He continues the story about demons. There are various types of magic in this world, such as necromancy, astrology, or divine magic. What is generally called and widely used as magic is natural magic. Because Norman is favored by demons and hated by spirits, he is unable to use natural magic. Instead, he can use magic that demon uses, and he has a talent for using demonic magic. In short, there are two ways for him to use natural magic. The only way to do something similar is to borrow the powers from demons who are good at using natural elements, which is essentially called pseudo-natural magic. However, if he wants to borrow their power, he has to summon several demons and use them, which comes at very high risk. Furcas explains all this while sitting, then suddenly he gets up and corners Norman down by falling him on the ground and putting his spearhead around his neck. He asks Norman with a vivacious demonic aura if he really wants to be able to use magic that much. In a threatening state, Norman gives him details that he promised his late mother that he would become the head of the EXILED family and protect it, but because he is incompetent, a stranger has become the successor and his sister is suffering. That's the reason why he has to learn magic and return to the house. Now he has realized why he can't use magic. He needs the power of a demon to do so. That's the only reason that keeps him alive, and if Furcas refuses him, then he will kill himself before a demon takes his soul. This way he will never be able to obtain the purest and strong soul that he desires. Lastly, Norman requests him to lend his power. After hearing all the babbling, Furcas asks him if he is threatening him. He backs down his spear. That farce is over, and apologizes to him that he was testing Norman to see how determined he is. Norman raises while saying he thought he was going to die. Furcas continues his story that demons should not materialize without the summoner's permission normally, but there are some demons like him who can materialize on their will for their purposes, so Norman has to be careful. Norman does not know how to be careful about them. Furcas tells him about the binding spell. If Norman learns this spell, he can bind the demon's movement when they act on their own. It's a power that resides in the Ars Goetia and can be only used when he is with the book. For this, Norman must summon a practice partner to cast spells on. Norman wonders if Furcas is not enough for his practice, and Furcas says he is an old man and fragile. Besides, he does not have the stamina to endure practice. So he advises Norman to summon ranking 55th in the order of precedence, Orobas. He is loyal to his summoner, so he will surely help Norman. Norman is about to chant his summoning ritual. Furcas stops him because Norman won't be able to summon 2 demons at the same yet, so he must send Furcas back to the demon world. In addition to magical power, strong mental strength is necessary to summon demons. Even if he can't feel it, he must be using a lot of energy to keep one demon in this world, and if he summons them recklessly, he can end up possessed by them if he is exhausted. But he does not need to worry about it if he interacts with demons frequently. His mental strength against demons will naturally be trained, and he will eventually be able to summon multiple demons. If he needs anything, he can Furcas anytime. Norman understands it all and thanks for everything. Norman chants the ritual to send Furcas back to the demon world. While disappearing, Furcas gives him pieces of advice that there are 2 demons that he must not summon if possible. 23rd in ranking, Buer, and 32nd, Asmodeus. These 2 are powerful, but they are also cunning and rebellious. If he summons them without being cautious, then they will corrupt his soul to take vengeance on humanity. Despite that, he would like to see Norman use all demons, and is looking forward to seeing how he lives his life from now on. Norman thinks that even though he was disowned by his real father for being a disappointment, a demon has expectations of him. He does not know if he can summon all demons. First he will learn the binding spell, then he will summon several demons and learn pseudo-magic, and this way he can prove he is better than Dimitri. Norman draws a ritual circle and chants to summon demon 55th in the order, Orobas. A horse-faced shaped demon appears and asks him if he is his master. Norman is appalled to see him and says he does not know if Orobas can call him master, but he is the one who summoned him. Orobas is impressed by Norman that it's very courteous of Norman to talk with him in a very respectful manner. Orobas takes out his long snake-like tongue and says Norman can ask him to do anything he likes. He can cook and do laundry for him, even he can clean his body with his long tongue. Brother you. Norman backs down and denies him by addressing him as Orobas-san. It brings tears to his eyes that Norman is addressing him, a humble slave, with honorifics with his name. He considers these honorifics unnecessary and requests Norman to address him without honorifics. Norman calls him Orobas, which gives satisfaction to his soul. Orobas bends on his knees and inquires Norman about the order he wants to give him. Norman tells him that he intends to learn the binding spell. Orobas asks him to leave it to him and comes to the practice session. He explains that a demon who would get a binding spell would try to interfere in this world by materializing, therefore he thinks he should materialize himself, and practice Norman allows him to materialize. Orobas becomes grateful to Norman for accepting his proposal. He starts crying and apologizes to Norman for getting emotional. Norman asks him if he needs a handkerchief, and Orobas, instead of getting himself together, bursts out in tears and decides to follow him forever. Orobas is a great and mighty prince who appears as a horse first, but after the command of the summoner, he puts the image of a man. He can discover all things of past, present, and future. He gives true answers of the divine and of the creation of the world. He is very faithful to the summoner and will not suffer him to be tempted by any demon. He governs 20 legions of demons. Orobas is in human shape and looks like a handsome, charismatic person. He brings out a whip that runs a chill through Norman's spine, but this whip is to create tension for better practice. If he fails in trying to bind him, then Norman can use this whip to hit him. Norman is surprised about his appearance. Orobas elegantly informs him that he has transformed into humanoid form as a result of materialization, and it will be troublesome if a humanoid is found by other humans. Orobas starts dancing ridiculously and asks Norman to use a binding spell on him. He is dancing to make it easier for Norman to see if Orobas has been restrained. Norman chants a binding spell through which a net is strangled around Orobas, which makes him excited that he has succeeded. Orobas is impressed by Norman that he is able to create something like this on his first try. No man realizes this spell is still not good enough. Orobas acts like he is bound, so Norman requests him not to spoil him if he is not doing something right. Then Orobas has to guide him. That would be a great kindness to him right now. Orobas becomes sentimental and understands his master's wish. He becomes serious and makes his body powerful. This time, Norman casts a binding spell on him, but fails to do so and exhausts his body. He thinks he can restrain Orobas, but it does not seem powerful enough and something is missing. Soon, they listen to the school bells ringing. Norman gets ready to go to school. He was kicked out for several reasons, but he was allowed to go until he turns 15 and graduates. He comes out of the house and requests Orobas to look out for the house because he is worried that the door lock seems broken. Orobas does not mind it and is grateful to obey his orders. Norman ends up coming late for class. His class is so noisy, so he plans to look for a book to get a hint on practice until the next class. He looks for books for binding or restraining spells. He gets a hand on a book where images are drawn related to binding magic and binding movements. Then he suddenly recalls the lecture of Rudon Sensei. The foundation of magic is communication with spirits. The more one visualizes how the spirits move and change, the easier it will be to control them. He makes logic out of this lecture that it is a natural magic class, but demons also have spiritual bodies like spirits, and binding spells can be not to restrain the body, but to stop the movement of magic. He decided to give it a try as soon as he gets home. He comes out of the library and meets Rudon at the gate. He informs Norman that a briefing for the next magic competition will be held in classroom 3 and asks him to go there quickly. They are in the classroom where Rudon informs students about the tournament that only students of age 14 or older can participate, and the winner of the competition will be recommended to the Xenos Academy of Higher Magic after graduation. The Xenos Academy is a very difficult school in which only a handful of geniuses are allowed to pass its gate. It's one of the biggest events of the event, but it's a tournament where accidents and injuries from magical combats are common. The medical team would do its best to respond, but there is a risk of injury that could affect their future life. Only the top 8 who win the qualifiers can participate in the main tournament. If anyone wishes to participate, then he has to raise his hand and state his name. Regal first raises his hand and then other students follow him. Rudon calculates that 30% of students are the same as in previous years. He lastly asks them again if there is anyone who would like to participate. Norman raises his hand, which surprises everyone. If he can't use magic, then why he would participate? However, it's a chance for Norman to prove that he is a better magician than Dimitri. Rudon is about to question him. Norman says if he can use magic by the time of the qualifiers tournament, then there won't be a problem, so he determinedly states to participate in the tournament. Rudon understands his reason. Regal challenges him. It would be a great sight to see, and hopes Norman does not turn out to be an incompetent, full of shit liar. There is 1 month left until the selection for the magic tournament. Norman's opponent in the first round is a guy named Art Molden. He is a student who gets good grades both in swordsmanship and magic. He wants to be able to use fire magic by the time he faces him, and for that reason, he needs to learn the binding spell. He returns home. He thought it was a body binding spell at first, but he remembered Rudon Sensei's lesson and realized it was probably a spell to stop the flow of magic. He begins his training with Orobas. Orobas starts dancing, making ridiculous moves. Norman observes and imagines his breath, his gaze, how Orobas moves and thinks, and how his magic flow circulates. Norman chants his binding spell through which a net strangles around Orobas' neck. He considers it not enough and continues to sense the magic flow of Orobas. He finally succeeds in binding Orobas and restricts his motion using white chains. He questions him if he can move, but Orobas is bound strongly, unable to even speak, let alone move. Norman chants a binding removal spell and releases Orobas from the chains. He hurriedly grabs Norman's hands and shows his excitement that he could not move at all. Norman thanks him because he was able to learn this spell thanks to him. He plans to send Orobas back to the demon world, but Orobas refuses and insists on not making him leave. Norman still wants him to leave, otherwise he will have Furcas to teach him. Orobas goes on insisting and requesting that he does not need to evict Orobas. Now that Norman has learned the binding spell, he should be able to summon 2 demons at the same time. Norman agrees not to make him leave, which satisfies Orobas. Orobas continues that since it's Furcas' bedtime, he will answer at his place. He asks Norman what kind of magic he wants to be able to use. Norman says he wants to be able to use fire magic by the exam 1 month from now on. Orobas grasps the situation and suggests the demon ranked 23rd would be the best candidate. However, he is very aggressive, and it's forbidden to interrupt him. Orobas is very protective of Norman. If something happens in case of emergency, he will protect him, but Norman has to be careful. Norman starts chanting his summoning ritual and summons AIM. He pops up and his appearance is kinda strange, even Norman is baffled. AIM has a human face, but two other bodies of cats and snakes are attached. Cat asks arrogantly Norman if he was the one who summoned him. Norman confusingly answers him that it was he who summoned him and wonders if the cat is the main body. Cat furiously yells at him that how he dares to try to use AIM, he will burn Norman to a crisp. It makes Orobas angry to the point he shouts at AIM not to insult his master even if the master forgives him, but he won't. Cat argues that Orobas the pervert is here too and wants him to get away from him. Norman somehow agrees to AIM on the part that he calls Orobas a pervert. AIM addresses to Norman that the fact Norman has the power to summon two demons at the same time. It seems he is not just a useless beat. Norman states his business that he can't use natural magic, so he needs demonic power to be able to use magic, and requests him to teach him how to use fire magic. AIM casually says Norman's power is something that demons like, and if that's the case, then he has no choice but to lend Norman his power. After saying it, the human face of AIM smiles creepily and says if Norman thought he would say that. AIM unleashes his strong fire magic power that makes everything around him burn in hell. Orobas protects Norman from being a barrier. Norman looks at the demonic form of AIM and is confused if he is trying to use the power of such a monster. Norman is scared and the overwhelming power of AIM makes his body shake. He wonders if he would be able to use him. Orobas turns to him to make him attentive and asks him not to be afraid and casts a binding spell. When he is facing Norman, AIM approaches him swiftly and gets him out of his way. A large explosion occurs at Norman's place, whose sound can be heard at EXILED House. Norman opens his eyes and sees Orobas has been protecting him as a shield and asking him if he is fine, even though Orobas himself is in poor condition. AIM is in his human form but has pitch black body. He considers Orobas crazy. They are demons, and what's the point in defending a human? Orobas rhetorically asks him who in the world needs demons besides the human race. As long as Norman needs him, he will serve his master with loyalty, which is also a reason for his existence. AIM does not understand him and plans to burn Orobas along with the boy into ashes. Orobas encourages his master that he does not need to fear, he will protect him with his life, and therefore, Norman must do what he can. Norman considers himself pathetic in that he is always being protected by someone like that time Rudon saved him. But he is not the helpless person that he used to be. There are things that he can do now. Norman starts changing his binding spell while thinking if he does not take action now, then he does not have a right to be called master. AIM condenses his energy to attack Norman, but before he does, Norman completes his spell and restricts his movements. Orobas appreciates his master, but is surprised when Norman moves ahead and plans to remove the binding spell. He intends to talk with AIM as equals. That cat is a cocky monster and says it has been a long time since he has been mocked to this extent, and he is pissed off this much that he can't even laugh. Norman as Naruto wants to develop a friendly relationship with AIM. AIM does not accept it that he is not like a pervert Orobas and would be friends with a human. A truly equal relationship is a transaction. He will teach him how to use magic in return. Norman will exterminate humans until AIM is satisfied. Norman does not agree with AIM's selfish desires, but if he refuses, AIM won't teach him magic. He says it's difficult to say it right now, but if he becomes a full-fledged magician, he might be allowed to participate in war in next future. Maybe then he will be able to fulfill AIM's desire. Cat considers him a kid who should learn more about negotiation skills. He inquires him the reason why he wants to be able to use magic so badly. Trying to use a demon for this cause is very risky, and if he is prepared for this. Norman says Furcas asked him a similar question, and he answered that he has something he must do, so if Furcas won't help him, then he would kill himself and his soul would be lost. When he told him this, he looked at Norman with terrible expressions. Cat starts laughing that he threatened that old man. He likes Norman's guts and takes his words back. He is even ready to teach Norman magic as a special favor. If Norman can't use natural magic, the only way to get his power is to absorb him into Norman's body. AIM questions him if he has the power to channel the demons, and Norman hesitatingly declines. AIM clicks his tongue and plans to lend him power directly this time. Orobas is furious that AIM clicked his tongue. AIM guides Norman to imagine controlling him while closing his eyes and taking 1 out of 100th of AIM's power into one point of his body. Any more than that power will result in the possessing of AIM's ego. His snake bites Norman's arm, and at first he does not feel any pain, but then he stops at one position. Orobas asks AIM if he has done something to his master. Aim calms him down that his master is not the kind who dies with something like this. Norman is feeling his body burning up and his blood boiling up. He calms down himself and imagines concentrating all the power in one part of the body. Aim asks Norman to look at his left hand, and there is a sigil of Aim. By manipulating the magic power of his sigil, he can use pseudo-fire magic. Orobas congratulates his master. The time for the selection exam for the right to participate in the magic tournament arrives. In the first round, it's a duel between Norman and Art, and the contestant will be considered defeated if they get out of the field or are unable to fight. The first duel begins. Art feels sorry for Norman for going all out against someone who can't even use magic, but he will not hold back. Everyone around them is cheering for Art. On the other hand, Norman makes a hand pose to activate his skill, Fireball. Norman uses a fireball to throw at Art, and Art uses a water shield as a barrier that is evaporated. Everyone, including Regal and Rudon, is surprised that Norman used magic and when he learnt it. Art considers him a pain in the ass, and now he can fight without worries. When Art is about to use a firebomb on Norman, Norman throws a direct attack of a fireball. Art dodges this strike using a wind gust, and upon cleansing of smoke, he does not get to see Norman in front. Instead, he sneakily appears behind him with an attack, Ignition on his dagger. Art is frozen at the point of wondering if Norman is an assassin and how he was hiding his dagger. Guys gossip about Norman, why he is using a dagger that can't neutralize magic. But maybe he can win with swordsmanship. Regal interrupts them, considering it impossible. They have spent years studying and practicing to master magic, and it has been its few weeks or maybe less than a few days for Norman to use magic. It's impossible to use magic on par with them in such a short period. Even if he is good at swordsmanship, he can't beat Art with magic. Magic is the ultimate power, and it's the reality of this world. Norman has been using his fireballs on Art, and he has been defending him and dodging fireballs. Art says to Norman that he won't be able to hit him with such a spell. Everyone wonders why Norman is using just Ignition and fireballs. What if he can use just these two spells? Norman seems to agree with them. The scene shifts to the time when he received Sigil from Aim. He asks Norman not to get excited. He can't use it properly. If he tries to make a big move, he will end up killing himself. Even after practicing for a month, he can do his fireball spell. The scene shifts to the present. It's not like he has not a plan, but it's a gamble. He has to distract Art with decoys of his ignited draggers and make him lower his guard. When Art uses his wind gust, Norman has to use his spell to cloud his eyes and then charge at Art with what he has got and lastly strike at him. Norman does it all according to his gamble and corners Art around the edge of the field. Art is confused that Norman is not using magic or swordsmanship, and if he has given up. He is about to use a fireball, but he looks at his foot. Everyone is shocked at what happened. The referee announces that Art is out of the field and the winner is Norman Asland. Norman is injured and sweating, whereas Art is surprised, thinking he did not notice because of irregular movements and smokes that Norman was aiming for a foothold and was attacking to get him out of the field. The audience does not seem to be satisfied with the result and demands a fair and square fight. Norman thanks him and turns to the other side before Art something back. Norman is gloomy because it's not something to be happy about. He used swords and the forbidden powers of demons to win, but more importantly, he has to think about the next match. When going ahead, he meets Rudon Sensei, who appreciates his fight with Art, that it was amazing. He is sure Norman has put in more effort than he can imagine. He head pats him, and while going says to Norman that he is hard on himself, so he has to pat on the back once in a while. With that, Norman's eyes fill with water and tears start flowing out. Norman was able to win the battle because of his strategy. If he wins the next round, he will have the right to participate in the country's magic tournament. But his next opponent is that prodigy guy Regal. Right now, Regal is in the arena fighting with a guy who is at his wit's end, but his attack does not reach Regal. Regal activates his spell Firestorm, saying he will show what happens to those who fight with half-assed determination. Everyone is surprised to see that this spell is a combination of fire and wind, which is an upper-class spell with a high level. With that attack, Regal's opponent is defeated in a minute. The whole arena is destroyed into pieces, and the medical team arrives on the scene to treat that opponent guy. It makes Norman think he cannot imagine winning against Regal at this moment. He comes back home after the match. Fortunately, thanks to Regal damaging arena, he has time until repairs are done. In the meantime, he wants to be able to use water magic, as it's said to be easy to use after fire magic. He has summoned Furcas to know about the demons who are good at manipulating water magic. Norman learns he is talking to a sleeping man. Orobas wakes him that it's not bedtime yet. Furcas wakes up saying he went to take a nap but ended up sleeping. Furcas tells him about the demon named Crocell, who is at 49th ranking in hierarchy, that she should be good at water magic, but she is a troublemaker. But she is not an aggressive demon, so she can be handled with negotiation. He inquires Norman the reason why he called this old man when he can ask Orobas about this. Orobas says he does not have interactions with other demons, so he does not know of the ones who are good at water magic. Norman tells him about what Aim told him not to summon him freely if he does not have something to burn for him. Furcas is amazed that Norman is something because he managed to tame that ruffian Aim. Norman gives credit to Orobas that he was able to negotiate with Aim. Now Furcas wants Norman to send him back to Demon World so he could continue his nap. Norman chants the ritual to send him off, and meanwhile, Furcas thinks of the astonishing fact that the day Norman becomes the Demon King is not far off. Norman grasps something Furcas said but is confused because Furcas has disappeared. Orobas addresses Norman that even though Furcas said Crocell is not aggressive, they should be on the safe side and be vigilant. Norman agrees with him that they can't let their guard down. What he is dealing with are forbidden demons. It's just that Furcas and Orobas are exceptions. Others might be rebellious like Aim. It's not a lie to say he is not scared, but he has made it this far. He can use binding spells and fire magic now. No matter how powerful a demon it is, he will use it to defeat Regal. He chants the summoning spell to summon Crocell, 49th in ranking, and it makes him surprised to see that she is not a demon, but an angel with a white bright aura. Norman is shocked he summoned a demon, so why the angel is here. She says with an angelic aura that he will love his neighbor and worship the Lord, but she turns gloomy and dark that she does not feel that way since she was banished from heaven. Orobas addresses her as a fallen angel and greets him first time. Norman understands now that she is a fallen angel and other angels fell from the heavens and became demons. She trembles and makes prayers to God why her sins are not forgiven and when she will return to heaven. She looks at the book Norman is carrying and affirms to Norman that it's Ars Goda. She has dark expressions upon realizing that she is being treated as a demon and is summoned as a demon. It feels terrible to her. Norman makes her attentive that he has summoned her because he has a request from her. She is okay to fulfill his request as it's the duty of an angel to help the needy. She is a fallen angel, but she can teach him geometry. Norman states his business that he wants to be able to use water magic. She bluntly denies him that she does not want to use water magic. He requests her to teach him, but she refuses consistently. She has been suppressing her powers and repenting for a long time. She will not use her powers until her sins are forgiven. Norman wants to know what sins are, and he asks her if there is anything he can do for her. She says she did not fall from grace willingly, and it is unpleasant to be lumped up together with other demons. Norman apologizes to him for offending her and still offers his help, but she asks him how a mere human can help her. If he can save her from darkness and suffering, she can't be of his help and requests him to return her to Demon World. When she is gone, Orobas repeats Furcas's words that she is not aggressive but difficult to deal with. She seems to want to be alone, so Orobas suggests summoning other demons who can help them. He has heard there are two types of fallen angels. The first one is those who fell from heaven on their own to rebel against God, and the second one is those who were banished after committing sin. Crocell seems to be one of the second category. Norman feels sorry for her that it must be frustrating to have been mercilessly cast down by God. He can find a glimpse of his story in her story. She wanted to be rescued from the endless darkness just like him. He requests Orobas to tell him if fallen angels can return to heaven. Orobas tells him that they cannot return to heaven once angels have fallen. He wonders she knew she couldn't return, but she would have repented countless times. Orobas asks him if it would not take him time to be able to handle pseudo-magic. He suggests he should use other demons and increase the amount of practice time rather than worrying about Crocell. Norman finds it right, but he will be more disappointed if he gives up on her. Even though it's not the same, he does not want to turn a blind eye to those who are in a similar situation to him. It's hard to live every day without hope. Even if he gets hated for it, he wants to help her even if it's just a little bit. He asks Orobas if he will bear with his selfishness for a bit longer. Orobas suggests if he confronts Crocell sincerely, then he is sure Crocell will expose her secret. Norman goes out and busy himself in constructing something. Orobas looks at it after it's done and hopes Master's feelings reach her. Norman chants a ritual to summon Crocell on that constructed site, and she is surprised to see that place. It's undeniable to say this place is like heaven. It has blooming flowers and a large field to its horizon. It's the hill that his family has been protecting for generations, and he heard that once an angel descended there. It's an altar of angel worship that has been passed down in this region since ancient times. He asks her if she can tell him what she is suffering. He can't just leave him alone. If he can't save her heart, he will give up on water magic too. Orobas also says that Norman did not borrow his power but researched everything on his own and even built the altar himself. She has to understand her master's desire to get close to her. Norman says he wants to be her strength. The way he addresses her, Crocell-san, reminds her of a little boy who addressed him Angel-san. It opens her eyes out of sentiments. She decides to open her feelings and confess her sins to him. It's the story of the time when she descended to the lower world and observed humans by the word of God. She meets a boy who asks her to play together, but she declines him that she is not here to play. As a divine instrument, she had no more emotions than she does now. With a smile, he again asks her to play, but she refuses him. Then he asks her to talk with him. Unable to decline him, she roams around the village with that boy. He shows her the fields that everyone in Kogo village cultivates together and the altar where they pray to God and the angels. He never thought a day would come when he would meet an angel. He is sure God guided him to an angel. So she began to visit him frequently, and little by little she gained emotions. One day he takes her to the field blooming with flowers that seem about the same as Norman created for her. He gives her the good news that he is going to have a sibling soon, so he wants to tell God that he is grateful to him for creating this world. His life is entertaining and loves everything that lives on this planet, everyone from his parents to Angel-san. He hopes that she will watch over him when he strives to become a good older brother who can protect his siblings. She hopes God will be listening to him. Shockingly, she is given a trial to use the power of the water goddess to cause a great flood in that village. She turns pale and asks the reason. One pious man asks as she is questioning God's words. She tries to make him understand that the people of that village love nature and living things and have deep faith in God and angels. There is a young boy who is grateful for this world and happy to be alive. He even prayed his thoughts would reach God. Why then he subject him to such a harsh trial? That man simply says it's the way of the world. After that, her heart turns corrupted with vivid thoughts, and she starts despising this world. She refuses the orders from God and descends to the human world where a water goddess is creating chaos around the village by bringing the flood. She maniacally goes to that angel and beats her. With that, water recedes and everyone thanks God. That boy sees a fallen feather of an angel and senses she was present here. In heavens, she is banished from the heavens for the crimes of rebelling against the gods and the crime of devouring the water goddess and stealing her power. Crocell regrets her decision, but God says she should have not been created. She shall be tormented in the depths of the abyss. The scene shifts to the present when she is in the presence of Norman. Orobas considers it a terrible story. Norman inquires her if she regrets helping that boy. She starts crying and refuses him that she does not regret it, and that's why she can't forgive herself for being like this. She took pride in serving God as an angel, yet she cannot deceive God and sincerely repent for her sins. She knows it's a sin, but she is happy that boy was alive. She must not forgive herself until her heart changes. Norman says his thanks and continues that's what the boy would say if Norman were that boy. He is relieved that no one lost their lives in that unfair trial. Thanks to Crocell, that boy, his family, and villagers were able to live peacefully. He also committed a taboo to get his family back, and sometimes he feels anxious about it, but there are more times when he feels saved. She also deserves to be saved, even if it's considered evil by the rules set by God. As a human being, he feels it right to save human lives. In addition, she is being punished with the fall from grace. They have to stop blaming themselves. He reaches his hand to her and says even if God does not forgive her, he will forgive her. She cries that her God was here all along and joins his hand. She offers him her body and all the power of water and requests him to guide her for the sake of his wish. Neen pays a visit to Norman's home and he welcomes. It has been a while since they have seen each other. He thanks her for reading his letter and apologizes to her for calling her out of the blue. Neen is also relieved she is far away from their father and Dimitri. Dimitri treats servants as his guinea pigs for his magic practice, makes them shop for whatever he wants in the middle of the night, and constantly insults them. Moreover, father does not say anything to him. The servants came to her to consult with her and let her listen to their stories, but there was nothing she could, so some of them quit. She is curious to know if Norman has a butler or servant for him because his place is quite nice. She had heard this place had not been taken care of for a long time and had been in ruins. He tells her that he has an acquaintance who has been helping him and is good at household work. She has not heard about any helpful acquainted. He makes excuses it's because they have just met. The truth is Nin can't see Orobas, who is feeling so proud. They come to the main topic that she has come here because he has requested to teach him spiritualism. He wants to learn spiritualism because he can't use natural magic and has been using spiritualism to absorb Aim's power. Therefore, he would like to use the same method to absorb Crocell's power. Crocell does not have any experience with this method and is not confident she can do it skillfully. She does not want to harm his body, so she suggests using any other method. Orobas also agrees with her while crying that he can't let something happen to his body. It leaves Norman to learn how to use spiritualism. He has knowledge about it from reading, but he is not sure if he can actually do it. Orobas suggests he ask about it from a demon skilled in spiritualism. Norman considers it the quickest way, but it's risky, so he leans on learning it himself. He has only started being able to use pseudo-magic recently, so he guesses Rudon will refuse him. He remembers there is someone in the family who can teach him. Nin does not mind teaching him, but even if he can use spiritualism, he will still be no match for powerful magic, so she does not consider it useful. However, she has heard it that those who are bad at natural magic turn out to be good at spiritualism sometimes, so it might not be a bad idea. She carries a sword in her hands. This sword belongs to their ancestor, Dargana Esland, and she will summon his spirit. It is said he was skilled in a technique that combines swordsmanship with magic and received a medal on the battlefield. It's more likely to be a successful spiritualism to call a spirit if there is an intermediary. While compatibility is important between the practitioner and the spirits, she does not need to worry because they are blood-related. The first thing one must know is his limits. She draws a ritual circle on a piece of paper and places it on the ground. She continues with a description that if one absorbs all the power at once, the burden on the body will be too great and you will experience rejection. But if he absorbs a little power, then his power will be weak, so it's difficult to find the right balance. She chants the summoning ritual to bring Dargana's spirit using his sword. She stays still for a minute and then raises her sword to say she has succeeded. Norman is surprised she can hold that sword with one hand, and she tells him that her body is moving on instincts. Even swordsmanship techniques she has never learned are ingrained in her mind. They come outside where she has something to show him. She concentrates her power and cuts, slice the hill into halves with just one slash. She has so skillfully done it that even Orobas and Crocell get jump scared. It's a technique that combines the Dargana's swordsmanship and magic. The magic is itself hers, so it's just the way she moves her body and uses her techniques that can be enhanced by spiritualism. She asks his brother in a cool way if he is able to do it. Norman is flabbergasted and says he will try his best.